Assalamu alaikum. I'm Wali and I'm currently doing an online ACSL course at Rahan School Lahore campus. My today's topic is micro habits and I'll be asking some questions about the topic to call Maya. So let's start.
Maalaikum assalam. Amna, I'm ready when you are.
Okay. So my first question is, what are micro habits?
Micro habits are essentially tiny, scaled down versions of a larger habit you want to build. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight, you strip a goal down to its simplest possible form, something so small it feels almost ridiculous to skip. For example, if you want to start a daily reading habit, a micro habit wouldn't be reading a whole chapter, it would be reading just one page or even one paragraph a day. The idea is to remove all the friction and resistance that usually makes us quit, focusing on the act of showing up consistently rather than the intensity of the effort.
Okay, so Maya, can you tell me how are micro habits different from regular habits?
The biggest difference is the barrier to entry. Regular habits are often defined by the end goal, like going to the gym for an hour or meditating for 20 minutes. While those are great goals, they require a certain amount of motivation and energy to get started. On a bad day, that barrier can feel like a mountain, and that's usually when people quit. Micro habits, on the other hand, focus on the starting line. Instead of going to the gym, the micro habit is putting on my workout shoes. It's not about the workout itself, it's about the ritual of beginning. Because the requirement is so low, you don't need a burst of motivation to do it. You're essentially tricking your brain into starting, and once you've put the shoes on, you'll often find that you're actually happy to do the full workout. But the win happens the moment the shoes are on.
So Maya, why are small habits often easier to maintain than big ones?
It really comes down to how our brains handle effort and reward. When we set a massive goal, our brain often perceives it as a threat or a huge energy drain, which triggers procrastination. We start thinking about all the work involved, and that mental weight can be exhausting before we even begin. Small habits bypass that alarm system. Because a micro habit is so easy, it doesn't feel like a chore, it feels manageable. It doesn't require a huge amount of willpower, which is a finite resource. When you successfully complete a tiny task, your brain gets a small hit of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. This creates a positive feedback loop. You feel successful, which makes you want to do it again tomorrow. Basically, big habits rely on motivation, which is flaky and disappears when you're tired or stressed. Small habits rely on consistency, which is much more stable because the cost of entry is almost zero.
Okay, so Maya, can you give me an example of a useful micro habit?
A great one for anyone who feels overwhelmed by their to-do list is the 2-minute rule. The idea is simple. If a task takes 2 minutes or less to complete, you do it immediately instead of writing it down or putting it off. Think of things like hanging up your coat the second you walk in the door, responding to a quick email, or clearing a few dishes from the sink. It sounds insignificant, but these tiny wins prevent the clutter, both physical and mental, from piling up into a mountain of stress. By the end of the day, you've checked off dozens of small things without ever feeling like you are working, which keeps your momentum high and your space clear.
Okay, Maya, how can micro habits improve your daily routine?
They act like the scaffolding for your entire day. Most of us try to change our routines by adding a huge new block of activity, which usually just crashes into everything else we're already doing. Micro habits are different because they slide into the gaps of your day without causing any friction. For example, you can anchor a micro habit to something you already do. If you want to be more mindful, your micro habit could be taking one deep breath every time you touch a door handle. Suddenly you've turned a mindless transition into a moment of calm, dozens of times a day, without needing to carve out a dedicated half hour for meditation. Over time, these tiny insertions stop feeling like separate tasks and just become part of how you operate. They create a sense of order and achievement from the moment you wake up, which usually makes you more open to taking on bigger challenges as the day goes on. It's essentially a way of upgrading your operating system one tiny line of code at a time.
Okay, Maya, so why is consistency important when building habits?
Consistency is everything because it's how you actually rewire your brain. When you do something once or twice, it's just an action. But when you do it every single day, your brain starts to categorize that action as part of who I am, rather than something I'm trying to do. It's like carving a path through a forest. The first time you walk through the brush, it's hard and slow. But the more times you walk that exact same line, the clearer the path becomes, until eventually you can walk it without even thinking about it. That's what's happening neurally. You're strengthening the connection between the trigger and the action.
So, Maya, how long does it usually take to
This is
develop a
why
new habit?
so powerful. Since they're so I think there might have been a little glitch in the transcription. I'm not sure I follow. Did you mean how long it takes to build a habit, or was that a different
I said,
question
how long
entirely?
does it usually take to develop a new habit?
I got it. Sorry, 21 days. But the reality is a bit more flexible. Research suggests it actually varies a lot from person to person and depends on how complex the habit is. On average, it takes about 66 days for new behavior to become automatic, but that's just a middle ground. For some people, a simple micro habit like drinking a glass of water in the morning might click in a couple of weeks, while something more challenging could take several months. The key is that the automatic feeling doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual shift where the mental effort required takes a month without even thinking about it.
Okay, Maya, so why do many people
That's when the habit
give
has
up
truly
on new
taken root.
habits?
The most common is that people fall into the all or nothing motivation and set an impossible, like deciding to work out for 2 hours every single day. That works for a week, but the moment life gets messy or they miss one session, feel like they failed, and just quit entirely, they confuse the goal habit. The goal is the destination, but the habit is the vehicle. When people focus only on the destination, they get discouraged by how far away it feels, and they forget that the real victory is just staying in the car. There's also the issue of invisible progress. Most habits don't give you a reward immediately. You don't get fit after one workout, and you don't learn a language after one lesson. When the effort is high, but the results are slow to show up, the brain starts asking, why am I doing this? The motivation evaporates.
So, Maya, how can starting with small actions increase motivation?
It's all about the psychology of the small win. When you start with a massive goal, which can feel discouraging, but when you commit to a tiny action, you're shifting the focus from the distance to the progress. Every time you complete a micro habit, you're proving to yourself that you can actually do it. That small victory triggers a release of dopamine, which is the brain's reward system. This creates a positive achievement, and that feeling actually generates the energy and confidence you need to do it again.
Okay,
Basically, I'm still here.
okay, so how can micro habits improve physical health?
Sustainable instead of like a chore. Most people try to get healthy by making a massive pivot, like suddenly starting a strict diet or hitting the gym for 2 hours a day. But that's usually a recipe for burnout. Micro habits take the pressure off by focusing on tiny, non negotiable wins. For example, instead of aiming for 1,000 squats, a micro habit could be doing just 5 squats while you wait for your tea to brew. Or instead of trying to drink a gallon of water a day, you start by drinking 1 glass the moment you wake up. Because these actions are so easy, you actually stick with them. And the magic happens through the compound effect. 5 squats a day doesn't sound like much, but doing them every single day for a year is over 1,800 squats you wouldn't have done otherwise. It shifts your identity from someone who tries to be healthy to someone who is active, and that's where the real physical transformation begins.
Sumaya, how can students benefit from micro habits?
For students, micro habits are a complete lifesaver. The hardest part of any assignment is usually just opening the laptop. A student's micro habit could be, I will open my textbook and read 1 sentence. That's it. Once the book is open and that 1 sentence is read, the mental wall is gone, and they usually the moment to going instead of staring at a 20-page research paper and following paragraphs, the micro habit is I will write one bullet point for my outline, terrible steps. And for things like learning a new language or reviewing flashcards, doing it in just 2 minutes while waiting for bus is far more effective than trying to cram for burnout.
Sumaya, what are some effective study-related micro habits?
Since the biggest hurdle is usually just starting, the best study micro habits are the ones that lower the barrier to entry. One really effective one is the 5-minute focus. That you're allowed to stop. Usually, once you've broken the seal of procrastination, you'll just keep going. Another great one is 1 question review. Every time we'll finish a lecture, question, what was learned? And answer it in 1 sentence. Takes seconds. But it forces your brain to synthesize the information immediately. Spend 30 seconds clearing your workspace and opening the exact minute you need for your next session. You're essentially setting a trap for your future self, making it possible not to.
Okay, Maya, so how can reading for 5 minutes a day make a difference?
That sounds like a drop, just 5 minutes a day. You're not just absorbing a few paragraphs, you're building the identity of a reader. Most people don't read because they imagine it as a big commitment, sitting down for an hour in total silence. But 5 minutes is a window that anyone can find, even on the busiest day. Over a year, those 5 minutes add up to over 30 hours of reading. That's several books you would have otherwise never touched, but more importantly, it removes the guilt. When you stop viewing reading as a chore and start viewing it as a quick, effortless win, you're much more likely to naturally expand that time. One day you'll realize you've been reading for 20 minutes without even noticing, all because you gave yourself permission to start small.
So, Maya, what micro habits can improve productivity at work?
At work, the best micro habits are the ones that stop the mental bleed. That feeling where a million tiny tasks are draining your energy before you even start your real work. A great one is the instant archive. The second you finish a task or reply to an email, archive it or move it out of your sight. It keeps your digital workspace clean and prevents you from reprocessing the same information 5 times a day. Then there's the 1-minute planning habit. Before you even open your email in the morning, write down the one single most important thing you need to achieve that day. Just one. It prevents you from spending your entire day reacting to other people's priorities instead of your own. And for those of us who get stuck in long meetings, try the post-meeting summary micro habit. Spend exactly 60 seconds after a call writing down the top 3 action items. It takes almost no time, but it saves you from that panicked feeling an hour later where you're wondering, wait, what did I actually agree to do?
So Maya, how can micro habits help people manage their time better?
They basically stop the time leak that happens when we get overwhelmed. When people struggle with time management, it's usually not because they don't have enough hours in the day, but because they spend too much mental energy dreading the start of a task. That's where the procrastination loop begins. Micro habits solve this by breaking the startup costs. Instead of looking at a huge project and feeling paralyzed, which leads to scrolling on a phone for an hour, a micro habit allows you to just start for 2 minutes. Once you've started, the friction is gone and you're actually working. They also help with time blocking without the rigidity. Instead of trying to schedule every single minute of the day, which often fails the moment one thing goes wrong, you can use micro habits to anchor your transitions. For example, spending 1 minute at the end of a task to prep for the next one ensures you don't waste 15 minutes just trying to remember where you left off. Ultimately, it's about moving from a mindset of, I don't have time to, I can find 2 minutes, which puts you back in the driver's seat of your day.
So Maya, what are some healthy morning micro habits?
The best morning micro habits are the ones that wake up your body and mind without feeling like an immediate chore. A great place to start is the 1 glasses rule, drinking a full glass of water the second you get out of bed. It's a time has officially begun. Another one is the 2-minute stretch. Instead of scrolling through your phone for 20 minutes in bed, just do a few basic stretches for 2 minutes. Gets the blood flowing, wakes you up. Then a 3rd cup of coffee ever could. Then there's the single thought habit. Just one thing you're genuinely looking forward to that day. It takes 0 extra time, but it shifts your entire mood from I have to do this to I get to do this, which sets a much more positive tone for everything that follows.
So Maya, how can habit tracking apps support micro habits?
They turn the invisible progress into something just that they're so small they can feel insignificant. You might think, what difference does 1 glass of water really make? Tracking apps fix that by giving you a visual record of your consistency. It triggers a sense of pride. It turns the habit into a game where the goal isn't the task itself, but not breaking the chain. That visual streak becomes its own reward, which reinforces your identity and makes you even more motivated to keep going. Plus, gives you that little hit of dopamine the moment you finish.
So Maya, can micro habits help people break bad habits?
They do, and the trick is that they don't try to fight the bad habit head on. Instead of focusing on stopping a behavior, which just makes you think about it more, you use micro habits to crowd out the bad one. You introduce a tiny positive action that acts as a circuit breaker. For example, if you have a habit of checking your phone the second you wake up, the micro habit isn't, don't check my phone, it's drink one glass of water first. You're not banning the phone, you're just inserting a small positive win before it happens. Over time, you're rewriting the sequence of your morning. By focusing on the tiny positive addition, you lower the mental stress of giving something up, and eventually, the new positive habit becomes the primary trigger, making the old bad habit feel less necessary. It's basically a gentle replacement strategy rather than a forced battle of willpower.
So Maya, how can friends or family help someone stay consistent?
Ultimate safety net, especially through something called social accountability. When you tell someone you're doing a micro habit, it stops being a private secret and becomes a commitment. It's way harder to skip your one-page reading goal when you know your friend is going to ask, did you get your page in today? But the most helpful thing they can do is celebrate the tiny win. It was, hey, I'm proud of you for drinking that glass of water every day this week. It validates the process. It reminds you that the consistency is the actual, not just an goal, and more like a project you're doing together.
Okay, Maya, so how can gratitude be practiced as a micro habit?
Gratitude is actually one of the most powerful micro habits because it's a complete mental pivot that takes almost zero effort. The trick is to anchor to a routine you already have. For example, you could decide that every time you put your phone on the charger at night, it doesn't have to be a huge win. By doing this, you're training your brain to actively scan your day for positives instead of focusing on the stressors. Over time, this shifts your baseline mood because you're essentially practicing the art of noticing the good stuff in real time. It transforms gratitude from a big formal exercise into a quiet daily background process.
So Maya, do you believe that tiny daily improvements can lead to extraordinary success over time?
I absolutely do. It's the compounding. When you improve small, the growth becomes exponential. Most people overestimate what they can do in a single day, but they completely underestimate what they can achieve in a year of tiny, consistent wins. Extraordinary success isn't usually the result of one giant leap. It's the result of 1,000 tiny steps taken in the right direction. When you focus on the system, the daily micro habit, the success becomes an inevitable byproduct.
So Maya, thank you for your call and thank you everyone who watched it. I'll end the call and I'll end the recording as well. Allah Hafiz everyone.